So it's been about 25 years since the original Trials of Mana was released as Seiken Densetsu on the Super Famicom back in the mid to early 1990s, and it's just simply a franchise. The Seiken Densetsu series is one that's very near and dear to a lot of fans' hearts, mine especially, and it's crazy how we're having this resurgence of the franchise in modern era. I mean, last year in 2019 we had the collection of Mana released exclusively for the Nintendo Switch, which was our first ever official capacity for a translation for Seiken Densetsu 3 in ever. I mean, we've had about 24 years worth of unofficial translations and from fans, and different variations within the different translations going on, but this is the first time that we ever got it and in an official capacity that the original developers intended. And now, a year later, we get a fully from the ground up remade version of said game in a completely new gameplay style and graphical style, and it has basically the same story beats with some slight deviations here and there, but it's amazing that they were able to do this. So in today's review, we're going to be reviewing Trials of Mana, the remake for PlayStation 4, Steam, and Nintendo Switch. I'm going to be covering the variations between the different ports, as well as the gameplay, story beats, and just about everything. I'm going to cover it. It's going to be spoiler free, but we're going to dive into it. That being said, guys, I'm Mekel Kasanova. I'm a content creator here in Hawaii, and I am really excited to bring this review to you. I've been working very hard over the last couple of weeks trying to get this out to you. Apologize for the delay, but if you guys are interested and you enjoy the content I put out, please make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and we got all kinds of craziness that goes on in our Discord group. So if you want to join our Discord, links in the description. If you want to pick up this game, I also have Amazon affiliate links for it as well. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and dive into this review and see if this is a game you need or if it's one that you could simply pass on. Trials of Mana, or Seiken Densetsu 3, was a cult classic that was never released in the West on the Super NES until the Nintendo Switch exclusive Collection of Mana was released in 2019, which gave us the first official translation of the game after 24 years of having to deal with unofficial fan translations. We were finally given the chance to experience the game in its intended original format, and like The Secret of Mana, Trials of Mana has been given a full-on, from the ground up, complete graphical and combat overhaul. Yet, unlike Secret of Mana, this is entirely done in a different style, which also, among many things, it removes the multiplayer component. And in many ways, it's similar in vein to Final Fantasy VII Remake. So the question right now for many fans is, does Trials of Mana Remake live up to the legacy of the original game in this all-new remake, or does it become as divisively hated as the Secret of Mana remake is? Let's find out. The story of Trials of Mana isn't necessarily deep or profound, but that's not shocking, nor should it be, given the era of which this title comes from. If you're familiar with the original, then this is an almost point-for-point remake in regards to the story, with some key differences of different things getting more fleshed out than others. At times, you can tell this game doesn't have the robust budget of Final Fantasy VII Remake to allow the developers to go crazy and do a lot of the things that could have been done a bit differently than the original release, but it's not an issue. It's neither here nor there, really. In traditional fantasy RPG fashion, you have a set of chosen heroes that have to rise up against an unyieldingly evil villain with no redeeming qualities that honestly only they can stop, and yeah, that's about as deep as it goes, honestly. It isn't bad that the story is simple, as honestly simple works, but for many they may want a a more motivating and fourth wall breaking plot than this game will offer. The main saving grace of this game's story is the fact that the 6 selectable heroes that you have to choose from each have 6 different prologues and deviations in the story to accommodate who is in your party and who and what you will encounter down the road, as well as a few differing plot points based on your selected heroes, which gives this game both replayability and extra levels of depth, separating it from other games of its era. The biggest thing to get out of the way here is to let you know that this is not a point-for-point remake of the SNES original, as this is a from the grounds up, fully realized remake of the classic, but it doesn't have the multiplayer aspect that the original did. The game retains its charm with its new direction and gameplay, and it kicks off with you having to select from 3 of 6 available characters before you embark on your journey to mix and match, and each of the characters have their own story arcs and motivations for being on this adventure. The characters that you didn't choose for your party end up being integrated into the story in an assisting role. And ultimately, this adventure is a by-the-books, old-school style of JRPG. And that's the great thing, honestly. In traditional JRPG fashion, you will run into various dungeons and areas with progressively stronger enemies, and find shops with progressively stronger weaponry and armor that you can purchase, and so on. It's definitely something that works for a remake of an older game in our current era, when many games try hard to do new and experimental mechanics for gameplay, whereas this one stays close to the original in many aspects in how it progresses and unfolds. When in dungeons, you should definitely explore off the beaten path, as in doing that you will uncover new and varied equipment and items, so it's always worth your while. Yet you should pay attention to your surroundings due to dungeons having their own set of gimmicks, such as poison floors, lavas, and etc. Compared to the original, this remake does a lot to both modernize and improve on the way that dungeons and towns are designed, with major improvements in the levels of detail to make each area feel unique and distinct from the previous one. The gameplay has taken a complete change in how it plays out compared to the original game, with its modernized action-focused gameplay that plays a lot like Final Fantasy VII Remake meets Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII, with the ability to lock onto your enemy and run around the battle arena, attack, jump, dodge, block, and more, as you learn enemy patterns and so on. Like most modern games, enemies will telegraph their attacks with a red glowing aura, and more often than not, it lets you know that it's an unblockable attack, and in typical action as well as action RPG formulas, you have patterns to memorize where enemies, including the bosses, will attack you in set patterns and then retreat back, giving you an opening for you to punish them in a weak point or area, and then you rinse and repeat until you finish them. With each level, you are given training points to utilize for unlocking new skills and passive abilities, which become more frequent as the journey continues, with many of them accessible during gameplay with the usage of the shoulder buttons for the sake of simplicity. And you know what? I like simplicity in a game like this. The game retains the class system of the original with its light and dark classes, which each have their own benefits and specialties, along with an unlockable third tier of class, which opens up 6 new classes that players can utilize. If you want to have a character be a warrior monk with healing capabilities or a fighting mage, then you can certainly have that. Given the changes to the combat system, the utilization of magic is a much more useful method of attack, given the removal of locking your characters in place to cast magic, which honestly is a real boon. And when it comes to length, overall the game should take you about 30 or so hours to complete in your first playthrough. If you play through without much, if any, exploration, and about 40 to 60 hours if you do explore. And to add in the mix of the replayability, you can get up to hundreds of hours of replayability given the different combination of characters as well. The graphics in this game are stunning. It is every bit what I wanted for a fantasy style JRPG like this to look like in modern times, with the amazing attention to details and little things on each character, such as their clothing, their hair, the armor, the knickknacks that they're wearing, all the way down to the different nuances that they do from the mocap and more. The team responsible for this remake kept the designs faithful to the original, all the while actualizing them into 3D. Everything from the towns to the dungeons to the overworld just look absolutely incredible and detailed and vastly distinct from one another. Each character you meet and interact with feels wholly different from the last, and just as the original, each has their own personality and characteristics. Now, one thing I do need to touch on is the differences between the PS4 and Steam ports versus the Nintendo Switch port, because there are some very key differences worth mentioning. The PS4 and Steam release run at 60 frames per second, with Steam giving you higher than 1080p graphical customization and the ability to boost the frame rate a bit more. The PS4 version runs similarly to the Steam version, with the only ability of running it graphically at 1440 or 4K-ish, based on if you're using a PlayStation 4 Pro with a TV or monitor capable of those outputs. And the base PS4 and Slim also running at 1080p and 60 frames per second. Now, across the board on the PlayStation 4, it will be running at 60 frames per second. The Nintendo Switch version, however, runs at 720p, both docked and undocked, and for some reason, in handheld and on the Nintendo Switch Lite, it dips to around 540p with instances of slowdown, and not to mention running at a variable frame rate of 30 frames per second, dipping down to 24 frames per second. This is something that, honestly, I don't understand, as this is not a graphical intensive game, and yet for some reason it runs like this on the Switch, which is baffling, given that this is yet another example of games being ported to the Switch from Square Enix that are not being as well optimized to run on par with the other releases. And again, has Square Enix doing the same thing that they did with both Lost Sphere and I Am Setsuna, both of which were equally non-demanding games, running at lower resolutions and frame rates compared to the PlayStation 4 counterparts. The game sounds as beautiful as it looks, with an orchestral majesty of an OST that takes the original game's music and takes it up several notches. It oftentimes the same way that Dragon Quest XI took classical themes from its franchise, he redid them in a grand way, or even better, how Final Fantasy VII Remake did. Even with this superb soundtrack, you are still able to switch back to the classic OST if you choose, if you want to retain some of that nostalgic charm from the original entry. Many, and this is probably a point of contention, but I'm going to go ahead and touch on it. Many have limited the voice direction of the English cast, but I personally liked what they did with it, as it's a very varied experience with the English cast, taking a lot of unique approaches and creative liberties to bring these characters to life. And while you'll always have the option of switching to the Japanese voices, I personally have never been able to gauge if they sound as good to us as, Japanese, because in a way, how we in the West are critical of English voiceovers and dubs. I'm wondering, do Japanese feel the same way when they hear Japanese voiceovers? It's just one of those things I've always been curious about, but I'm not sure what it is. But for me, since it's not an issue, I always just leave it in English and play it from there. Are there some characters that have, certain inflections and escalations in tone and stuff that just may not sound right? I think that's true of any dubbed experience, but that's neither here nor there for me. But that might not be the issue for you, so that's for you to decide. And as far as the downsides, the only one that I can see in this remake, honestly, aside from the graphical and frame rate downgrades, if you decide to play this on the Nintendo Switch, is the fact that you no longer have multiplayer capability, as this is now a solely single player experience. And while it's a great experience in a single player style, it also loses a lot of its charm of being able to play the game with up to 2 extra friends, as that opened up levels of depth and strategy that are sadly missing from this one, given how the computer AI does the very bare minimum when it comes to so many scenarios. And to wrap it up, we are in an era where many classics are being remade time and again, either in the format of from the ground up remakes or one-to-one touch-ups. And while many can argue that this is showing a lack of creativity and originality in the gaming industry, I'd argue that this is a great thing, that we have so many classics being made on modern hardware for modern gamers to be able to enjoy. And Trials of Mana does the original game justice by paying homage to it and its fans while bringing in new fans to enjoy this timeless classic. Despite its age story and cliche story beats and archetypical heroes and villains, what you are left with is a game with an easy to follow story and lovable characters combined with solid gameplay and engaging adventure. And while it's simple for simplicity's sake, it's still a damn good game, and that's why it's a game you need in your library. With that being said, we're wrapping up the review of Trials of Mana for PlayStation 4, Steam, and Nintendo Switch. Shout out to Square Enix for their review copies of said games, and it's a game I think you need. I think you would definitely enjoy it if you're looking for something to play after you finish Final Fantasy VII Remake, or if you finish Persona 5 Royal and you're looking for that next amazing game to pick up. This is one you simply can't miss. And I'm just, being able to play a classic that when it originally came out, I had to import it, and this is back when I was studying Japanese. My mother was making me learn Japanese at the time, as well as other languages, and it was a great opportunity for me to translate and learn and enjoy something that I never would have thought 24 to 25 years later would ever get translated. So it's really cool. I'm really happy about it, and I think you guys would enjoy it. But that's me. I think you might. I could be completely wrong. So whatever your thoughts are, if you have Secret of Mana, or not Secret of Mana. Yes, even if you had that one, which the remake is something I actually enjoy. If you've got Trials of Mana remake and you absolutely love it, let me know. If you have it and you don't like it, tell me why. Let's get the conversation going down below in the comment section, and let's just get this dialogue going, because I'm very curious to hear everyone's reaction to it and their feedback. I think feedback, both as a creator creating reviews and as a company such as Square Enix, I think feedback, although constructive criticism feedback, is something that helps everyone learn and grow, become better at what they do. So I want to hear from you guys, and if you want to follow me on social media, I have links for that all right here, as you can see right section here. And if you want to join our Discord group, link for that is down in the description. And if you want to pick up this game, I have Amazon affiliate links, which if you're going to pick it up on Amazon, if you pick it up using my links, I get a bit of a kickback, and it helps out the channel. Everything that's invested into me is reinvested back into the channel. I've got Patreon, I've got channel memberships, and it's all there. If you guys want to support, completely optional, but by just checking out the video, giving feedback, whether positive or negative, it's all there. I appreciate it. So with that being said, this is Mekel Kasanova, Hawaii content creator and podcaster. I am signing out. I hope you guys have a great one. Deuces wild, too sweet, be the elite, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Congratulations. And since you made it here, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Like the video if you enjoyed it. And you can always check out MikelKasanova.com. If you want to support the content, we've got Patreon, as well as channel memberships and super chats. And with that being said, this is Mekel Kasanova. I enjoy you guys. I hope you have a great one. Mahalo, and see you next time.